Hi, I'm Amber.
And I'm Jessie.
And this is
Glowing in Tech.
Powered by Makers.
So today we are joined by the wonderful Adrienne. Is that how I say your name?
Hi, yes, Adrienne. Yeah.
Lovely to meet you, Adrienne. Would you be able to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, so I'm currently a software engineer at a cloud native transformation consultancy based in London. And I've been doing that since April last year. So I've actually been in tech and in software engineering for less than a year.
Ooh.
Prior to that, I worked in public relations, which has a lot to do with media and pitching out clients and getting stories written. And I did that career for 5 years before kind of doing a whole 360 and choosing another career.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that through doing a Makers bootcamp, which is like a full-time bootcamp course where you do it for 4 months and then you get like a new career out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's what I do now.
Love that. And before we get into how you managed to get a scholarship at Makers, it's time for the segment.
The Industry Insights in 5. So I'm going to ask you what the cloud native industry is in 5 minutes or less.
Cool. So yeah, the agency I work for does cloud native transformation. And what that means is helping companies. So clients come to us or we pitch to them and they help them be more cloud native. And what that means is specialising in cloud computing, which is how companies kind of have scalability, reliability, so there's no downtime. And it's the opposite of when you make an app and you store something locally on your computer, it's on your computer, you'd have to have your own server to kind of get people to access it. But cloud native is that they have other companies who run the service for them, which are just massive warehouses. We're filled with loads of computers. And so the company saves money on running the warehouses and the lighting and the space. And also they can scale up and scale down anytime. They can have as many servers as they want. If they need to scale down, they can take that away. So it kind of saves cost. So we help companies kind of transform to that way of thinking. Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. And what is it about the cloud native industry that interested you?
It interested me because it's kind of the way everything's going. Like I was thinking of an example of an app that's not kind of using the cloud. I was like, if I go on my computer and say something locally, but then I thought, if I go on Word, there's like Google Docs. That's a software as a service kind of thing. And everything kind of uses the cloud nowadays. So it's a good place to be, I think.
Yeah, no, for sure. We've definitely seen a massive change in recent years of like, even within our company, moving towards having that kind of external service so that you're not having to maintain, like you said, the data warehouses, you're outsourcing all of that. So yeah, super, super interesting. Now, Amber, I think you want to get into the...
No, yeah, I just want to know about what made you, like you're working in PR for 5 years, and then what made you say, okay, I think I want to change careers, because it can be quite a daunting process. When did you realize that you wanted to do that, and how did you end up finding Makers and a scholarship opportunity?
Cool. So I think coding was always like some magical world that I knew existed, but I didn't know anyone who did it.
Yeah.
Or I didn't know anyone who did computer science or even like IT. So it was always there, and it was always like in the back of my mind. I'd sign up to newsletters and be like, oh, this looks interesting. But then I think it was during COVID mainly. So I moved back home during COVID, and it was that whole working from home period where people had more time than usual after work. Because of not commuting. So I started looking into free coding things, like Code Academy, and I signed up for this She Codes online course thing. I think it literally came up through ads, and I was like, because I was consuming so much, like, get into coding. Searching and algorithms. So I started looking into it properly. I was already signed up to Makers, found Coding Black Females, and then saw that they were offering a scholarship. And I was like, this is kind of, the timing was pretty key because I had moved home, so I wasn't paying like astronomical rent in London anymore, and I could kind of afford to take the time to stop work. And and also the scholarship, they paid for the course, which is usually like $9,000.
Yeah.
So it was perfect timing. And I thought, yeah, now's the time to like take this seriously and just go for it. It's like now or never, basically.
That's fantastic. It can be such a scary thing, right? Because you don't know what it's going to be like, and you're jumping into like a whole new area that you've never been in before.
Mhm.
So what was the application process like for you?
The application process overall was fine. It was quite a long stretch.
Mm-hmm.
The first part was written questions like, oh, why do you want the scholarship? Why do you want to do software engineering? Why particularly do you like makers? And then I think I had a phone call and also a like pair programming interview. But I hadn't done pair programming before.
Yeah.
But I signed up to this webinar. This lady was talking about pair programming and what to do and how to do it. So that helped a lot. And then I actually initially didn't get through to the scholarship in the first place. Like I got the whole rejection letter and they were like, no. And I was like, oh, damn. Okay, maybe next time. And then it got closer and closer to the start date. And I got another email being like, oh, actually, no, someone has dropped out and you get the place.
Wow.
I was like,
I love that. I love that.
And also it started in a month. So I had to literally hand my notice into work like that day.
Wow.
Wait.
That is a gamble.
That's such short notice. Like,
Yeah.
wait, so in those 24 hours kind of like space, how did you come to the conclusion that, okay, I'm actually going to hand in my notice the next day? Like, what was the time period?
It was literally like the next day. That night I drafted in my notice letter and the next day I handed it in because I was like, the course start, like the part-time bit that they let you do a month before, I could do that while working.
Yeah.
But the full-time course starts in a month and I need to be there.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So was that an easy decision for you to make, or did you find that like, what was...
I had already kind of made the decision beforehand when I applied and I was like, I'm going to take this seriously. But it kind of definitely put it into actually being a reality when I got there. Actually, no, you've been accepted. And I was like, oh, wow.
Oh, wow. And so the part-time course, was that like the Ruby course that you needed to do? Like what programming languages were you learning?
So Makers does Ruby. And so the course overall is 4 months, but 1 month of it is part-time. And during that month, you don't, like, it's not 9 to 5. You just do it around like your work and you have to complete that month. And there's little challenges and stuff. And you have to complete that month before you start the full-time thing.
Okay.
Like they'll literally check in and be like, okay, you need to do this before we can let you on the full-time course. And it's stuff like GitHub, learning a bit about GitHub, learning a bit about the command line, and doing some Ruby challenges just to get you kind of like to the bare minimum of
And I guess with that little bit, you've got some time to figure out whether it's what you want to do, right? Did you find that you at that point were like a little bit apprehensive? Did it make you feel like this is definitely what I want to do? Or what were your thoughts when you were going through that first part-time bit?
The part-time bit, I thought it was really fun. Yeah, I thought it was fun. And I was doing stuff that I didn't even know was a real thing. Like I had a GitHub, but I think I'd only had like Hello World.
Yeah.
And then they were like, oh no, you need to do this and learn how to use GitHub on the command line as well. And I don't know, I found it really interesting. And I was like, okay, no, this is going good so far.
That's really cool.
I remember when we were learning how to use Git together.
Yeah.
We were paired up. So we did the Sky Get into Tech scheme and we were paired up on the GitHub bit. And when I say like, everyone had issues with the whole Git. Like,
that session was like people literally having little bits of crisis.
And it was virtual, right? So our instructor was going to us and going, oh, I need to go to another group. And like, she seemed very stressed out. But I remember trying to do that alone and finding it quite challenging. So it was nice that like...
Yeah, we got to push and pull between each other.
Yes. Oh my God.
So how did you find like learning Git? Because you were doing this part alone now, or were you leaning into like other communities? Like, were you pairing with anyone?
During that month of the part-time course, we all had access to Slack. And so my cohort is like the group of people and makers that were did this course at the same time as me. So we could message in Slack and be like, hey, I'm stuck on this. And then
that's good.
They also wanted us as part of that to organize pairing with someone.
And that's
just
really good.
Read how to pair program and then have a go and take it from there, which is like a new thing for me as well. But yeah, there was always people to message, people always responding. if in case you needed help or were like seriously stuck.
Yeah, no, that's such a good thing to know, because sometimes like when you hear the first part you're going to be alone, sometimes like it can be quite daunting. So it's good to know that there's a community that you can already reach out to first.
Definitely. And I think that's the bit I see people struggle with. If I see like somebody's tried to and then given up, it's often because they've not had anybody else to talk to about it. Like I know that when we did our bootcamp, there were so many parts that like if I was really struggling and you got it, like it was helpful for you to explain it to me.
Yes.
And so I can't imagine what it would be like to do that alone. So I'm glad that even at that point you have a community and people to message.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's helpful on both sides, right? Like if someone asks you a question, it helps to reinforce your own learning.
Exactly.
And then also to get help from someone else who like knows it. It's good to be able to ask those questions and like work together to solve the problems. So yeah, that's really cool. You did the first month part-time, and then the next 3 months, what was that like? So it was full-time, 9 to 5 kind of vibes. And was it virtual or was it in person?
So mine was in August 2021. So it was virtual. It was really virtual. Yeah,
okay.
Virtual. So yeah, that was good. At the beginning of the course, you get put in a peer group, which is a group of, I think mine was 5 people. And we did a stand-up every morning. So general chit-chat about, how's the day going? Well, how's your weekend? Or how did you find yesterday's challenge? So that there was always like meeting at 9. So you always kind of started your day then. So
I like that because that's like an actual engineering role. Like I remember when we first, well, at least for me, moving into my first engineering role, it was so different to how I'd worked before. But with that, you kind of get the experience of what it's actually like day to day with your stand-up, doing the agile rituals. That's really cool.
Yes, they were very big on agile processes. So yeah, stand-up every day. And then, so the pair programming, what they had was a bot on Slack, and it would pair you with someone else someone different every day. Not necessarily from your peer group, but from just from the cohort. And the weeks were put into challenges. So it'd be like, week 1 there's a challenge, week 2 there's a challenge. But every day you paired with someone new. And it'd be pairing pretty much 9 to 5. But like it sounds intense, but you have breaks in between. And I was big on using the Pomodoro timer. So like,
I love that.
20 minutes and then break, 20 minutes break.
So smart.
Break for lunch. They also had things like meditation at lunchtime if you wanted to do that. And yeah, it was pretty much just pairing every day, like going through the challenges.
That's so sweet.
Was there like anything in particular that you learned from working with so many different people in terms of pairing?
Yeah, it was. I learned quite a bit because everyone was at different levels and had completely different experiences. Like some people were coming from I had a career of 5 years. Some people had a career of 20 years. Some people were just out of college, but they were really into it and like very good at it. Everyone had a very different level, so you had to accommodate for everyone.
And it's like that when you get that role, right? Like I still find all these different pairing styles when I'm pairing with a new engineer. I'm like, you do it this way, and you know this thing, and it's a good thing to be exposed to early on, I think, because it's always going to be a different dynamic every time you pair with someone new.
100%. I like to talk about like pairing styles. Like some people don't want to be corrected while they're writing. Like they just want to write their code and then correct afterwards. Or like sometimes I'm writing, someone's like, you need to change this. I'm like, let me just finish writing it down.
Let me just get the pseudocode out.
Yeah, literally just get the bare basics out, and then like we'll do up the cleaning. And even it's good that you made time to have those breaks, because it can be very intense looking at a screen and talking to someone a lot. Like, did you tend to also like, what's that thing where someone's typing and someone's the brain?
Driver and
navigator.
Yeah,
driver and navigator. So did you tend to switch roles? So you weren't typing all day, that you'd switch roles?
We so they had a big document about how to be a driver, how to be a navigator.
Wow. That's really good.
That was one thing that we practiced a lot. And then we'd switch in between either like every hour or every just whenever anyone wanted to switch. And then later on in the project we had bigger group projects, so it'd be like a group of 5 rather than just 2 people. So in that, we all switch around, driving, navigating, pushing, pulling, using VS Code Live, so that people can go on there. Some people prefer just I don't know. There was something else I used where someone could access my computer and do the typing for me.
It's Code With Me on. That's on Python.
Share.
Oh, okay.
So people prefer very different methods. But at the end of that first week, I was exhausted from like preparing every
so
day.
tiring.
Yeah.
So
I was
tiring.
exhausted. And then there's also weekend challenges. So yeah,
Wow.
it's very like full on.
Yeah. And so how long after that did you find your job, and what was that process like?
So I finished in mid-November, and I've got my job offer that I'm currently at in February.
Okay.
Which is about, they say take about 3 months, like expect to take 3 months to find. Although some people found a job while before we had finished.
Wow.
Yeah.
And some people found some after 3 months, so it kind of varies. But that process was relatively smooth because they have a lot of business partners and people that hire from makers quite a lot, so they know what they're getting. And yeah, so the company would come to makers to do lunchtime talks and say like, oh, we're hiring, we're looking for 2 people, and here's the application process. And also the application process was like 2 questions. That is, why should we hire you, and why do you want to work for us? Which is basically the same question, like inverted.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And after going to their lunchtime talks, you kind of know a lot about the company, you know a lot about the people. You can like pull from the lunchtime talk and like put it directly in your application and be like, oh, so the founder said this, and this is what I liked.
Oh, that's so good.
So it kind of definitely helps smooth out the whole job hunting process. Although I did apply for other jobs, not through makers, not through their partners, but like just separately, which was fine as well. Like I got a few interviews. Yeah.
And did you have any support with those applications? Was there anyone who used to talk through like what the process was like? I'm just wondering how you prepared.
Yes. So after the bootcamp, they have a whole thing of they have a whole like careers team. So I had a guy that I would meet up with, just on Zoom every weekly to go through things like, oh, which job did you apply for this week? Go through my CV, like look at my GitHub, and yeah, just kind of make sure you are applying for jobs, because it's easy once you've done the course, and it was around Christmas time as well, so to kind of like
and fall back to something safe.
But they literally had it in your diary, like, yep, we're meeting up today for a CV workshop, or oh, there's a careers fair. There was one in person as well, so you could go in and like meet employers and stuff. So it was very helpful to have that support, which I think is a big benefit of going through like a boot camp that has lots of connections.
Yeah. No, that's great. So something you've spoken about is how following other people who are in tech and listening to their stories was a motivator for you. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Yes.
So I mentioned before, like when I was during lockdown and stuff, when I was thinking about doing career change, I kind of had signed up to newsletters, and then I started following particularly Black women who were working in tech or had career changes, or were working as a software engineer. And yeah, the girlies are really posting out here.
Yeah.
Like, I really love it. Day in the life. Oh, what like skills you should learn, what to do, what not to do. So yeah, particularly I think Instagram is a good one. And then also Twitter, and just finding out about people's journeys, about what they did to either change careers, or because a nerve-wracking thing was like, I don't have the degree in computer science.
Yeah.
But a lot of people actually don't.
Yeah.
That I followed. Maybe that's just who I was drawn to.
Yeah. No, but it is
helpful.
It's really affirming to see like there are people who made this career switch later on, because you're always feeling like you're on the back foot almost against all of these computer science grads. Why would anybody want to hire me when I don't have that computer science background, and I've done a boot camp instead? Like, I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, and even in like the job requirements, like ideally from a computer science, like you have a computer science degree.
Yeah.
But that's why it's good to see some people say or boot camp. I'm seeing that more often in like job descriptions, that they're including that. So it means that you don't, like, you're more likely to apply for those jobs when you see that, okay, like I have a boot camp. But I think sometimes you just have to be audacious. Like I remember I was applying for jobs, like even if they said like must come from a computer science degree, it just had to be done. Do you know what I mean? And it's like I feel like sometimes like you can put yourself in situations that risk you, and sometimes it just pays off. But it's cool that you ended up actually getting a job with someone that knew what they were getting, so they're already invested in hiring people that come from non-traditional backgrounds.
Yeah.
And like actually valuing that as
definitely, because sometimes it can take no, that's a really good point. Sometimes it can take some convincing. Like
yeah,
me and Amber a year into our engineering journey, got to do a talk at Lead Dev, talking to engineering leaders, being like, bootcamp grads are amazing. They're incredible. And there's some resistance because we had some feedback that was like, oh, are you like saying that people from boot camps are better than people with CS degrees? We're going to say, no, we're not saying that. We're just saying like, you can't put one above the other because of where they've come from. And it's like important to acknowledge the fact that you did a boot camp, you did a complete like 180 on your career. That's bravery. That's dedication. You've gone out of your way to completely change something, go into a scary new field that you know nothing about and learn from scratch. Like, that's admirable.
Exactly. And the fact that you're willing to be a beginner again.
Yeah.
Like, you know, sometimes 5 years in, like, do you know what I mean? Like, you're comfortable, you're settled, you know what you're doing. Do you know what I mean? And so it's just like to be like, okay, I'm going to make a big change for myself and I'm going to be a beginner. Like, that just shows just the extent to which that you're dedicated to the cause, you know? So it's so inspiring to see the fact that you are able to do that. And also like now you're in this career. So how did you find it going from a boot camp to now actually starting your first technical role?
I found it good because the company I went to, they hired quite a few boot camp grads. They hired me and another girl at the same time.
Oh, that's good.
And then like a month before, they had hired 2 others from the cohort before us. And then before that, they just had loads. They had loads of like makers people. So they kind of knew how to onboard us as well, which was great. Like the onboarding took, I'd say 2.5-ish months of just like learning. We do self-led learning, then we do instructor-led learning.
Oh, you had an instructor.
It would just be the founder of the company would like go through these courses because it was very small.
Yeah. Still cool.
That's so cool.
Yeah, we would go through these courses, and he was just so good, and I was like, wow, like I want to be like this.
Yeah.
But so I think they knew what they were getting. So the onboarding was good, and then from that, because it's a consultancy, you go on to something called the Beach, which is where you don't have an assigned client, but you get to either prepare for the next client that you're on or do some learning or like get certifications and stuff. And then from then on, they like prepare you for going on to a client engagement, which is,
And with those client engagements, something that you would do on your own, or were you paired with like senior? What was that balance like between junior and senior?
So I'm on my second one now. And there's always a balance. Yeah. They've never, at least at this moment in time, for me as a like very beginner, just put you out there by yourself. There's always someone there. So often I'd be pairing with someone like with way more experience than me. I
love that for you. And then, so did you have to learn more about cloud technologies while you're in the role? Like, was this something that makers actually covered and then you applied that learning into the role? How did that work out?
So makers didn't cover any of the technologies that I've like been exposed to in this current role. But I think I knew that would be the case because it's just kind of like the bare bones. But I think what they did instill was like being able to research stuff and find out about things and investigate things for yourself, which I think is like a key skill now.
Yeah, definitely.
But no, they didn't touch on any of the technologies that I use now. But also because it's consulting, I would spend like a period of time working with one technology and then quickly move on to something else. I wouldn't necessarily get that deep dive into something or like be an expert in something, but as long as I can kind of figure it out, help the client, and then I can just move on to the next client, and like, so it's very touching on different things, which I think is good for now.
It's really cool. And I think it's a really important thing as well that often a lot of people early on don't necessarily understand. Like, I think there's too much pressure on like, which language should I pick to learn? Which one do I like get deep into?
This was me.
Should it be JavaScript? Should it be Python? And ultimately, it can be whatever you want, because in the beginning, you're learning those fundamentals, and those concepts can apply across a different range of technologies, like I'm sure you're finding now. So it's like, I do think it's really cool that for your first role, you're getting exposed to all these different things, because I'm sure you're starting to notice patterns and things that you can apply across a variety of different kind of problem fields and areas.
Because it's all about problem solving, right? Oh my gosh. I remember I was jumping from Ruby to Python. You know, I love that. Remember my Python phase? I don't talk about it often, but honestly, my Python phase was a phase.
I was nearly a back-end girl, and then she left me.
Then I was just like, do you know what? This has got to go. I saw databases and I was like, this ain't for me, babes. And then moved on to JavaScript. And I remember like feeling like, oh, I've touched so many different technologies, but I'm not specialized in anything. But eventually it came to the fact that it was actually very good for my learning that I actually had experience with so many different languages. So I think if anyone's listening and they feel like, oh, I've touched on so many different languages, but I haven't quite specialized anywhere, it takes time to see the results and the payoff of the fact that you know so many different things, and just focus on the fact that your problem solving skills. You don't learn problems, problem solving skills, because that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
So what lessons would you pass on to anyone who's thinking about doing makers full time or is about to start? What's some lessons that you'd love to share with them?
I'd definitely say look into boot camps in general. Which one is for you? I liked makers because they focus on emotional intelligence. They had other workshops for us like communication, setting boundaries, and then they had meditation, yoga. So it's like during that period of transitioning your career, it can be quite stressful. So they put a lot of emphasis on like take care of yourself, like make sure your mental health is okay, your health is okay. So I knew that was a good one for me. But yeah, research which one is good for you. I know there's some that specialize in like front end specifically. So if that's what you want to do, then do that. But another thing while you're in the course, I would say is being able to organize your own time, because it's very kind of free the way you can organize your time. So even though I was pairing 9 to 5, like if someone said, oh, I'm not feeling well today, I'm gonna like take the day off, then it's the onus is on me to be like, okay, I'm either gonna like join another pair or I'm gonna try and do this day by myself. But it's very easy to just say, oh, okay, fine, I'm just gonna like run errands and not do anything today.
Scroll through TikTok.
Yeah, so definitely be quite organized with your time and like, quite focused. And then the last thing I would say is during the job hunting process, try and be realistic about how long it might take you to fit from when you finish the course to when you find a job. Because a lot of these YouTubers are like,
how I became a software engineer
in 2 weeks.
I look at Google after 2 months. I'm just like, this is not realistic for me anyway.
And it puts a lot of people down when that doesn't happen. Like you've put in all this effort and you don't have a job at Google after 2 weeks. So I must be bad at this, right? And that's
not the case.
It's not the case.
No, not the case. So yeah, just know that after the bootcamp, it will take a while to either find a job that's right for you or get a job offer. I would say so. Prepare for that time.
Lovely. Thank you so much. So that's the end of part 1. Stay tuned for next week where we're going to be speaking to her about her biggest career challenges and her tech tea.
Until then,
make sure you're subscribed,
like, comment, do all the things. It's exclusive on YouTube.
Available on all major podcast platforms.